So in this video, we take a look at Lucy Letby's property, which she purchased during the time in which she carried out these awful acts. We also take a look at the evidence found inside that home and hear from one of the lead investigators on his opinion as to why those notes were found. So Lucy Letby bought her own home, her first home, back in March 2016. That's the date I can gather from the Rightmove website when she moved in. So she moved into this new property, her new house, her first house, in March 2016. Bearing in mind that these crimes that she has now been convicted of took place between 2015 and 2016. So these would have been ongoing at the time in which Lucy Letby moved into this house. Now, what has struck a lot of people, but what hasn't actually been mentioned that much in the press, is the fact that Lucy Letby's property backs directly onto a cemetery. Now, during this trial and during the investigation, so many people were messaging me and talking to me about this location and why would she choose to buy a house that literally, and I don't mean it's like a couple of hundred meters away, it literally backs onto her back garden. The cemetery backs straight onto her back garden pretty much. Why would she choose that property? But that wasn't the worst part. And now I've got no way of verifying this whatsoever. But around 5 or 6 individuals came to me and said, did you know that Lucy Letby's house actually backs onto the baby memorial? It's the house that's the closest possible house to where that baby memorial is situated inside the cemetery. Now, as I say, I've got absolutely no way whatsoever of verifying that. That is just what I've been told by multiple different individuals. It could be true, it could be a complete load of rubbish. I have no idea. But it does make you wonder if this was a selling point for Lucy Letby when she purchased that house. Now, the next point that stood out to me was Lucy Letby's spare room. Now, this was the room in which the shredder was located, the infamous shredder. Does everybody remember the shredder? Lucy Letby saying, I had all this confidential information, these medical notes, but I didn't know how to get rid of them. I don't have a shredder. Yes, I do. I just bought it before I was arrested. All of that stuff. This is where the police found the shredder, in the spare bedroom. But that is not what this video is about. Please look on the wall in front of you there. You have a decoration, I guess you could call it. It's a bit like a cartoon owl on some kind of branch. Now, on the face of things, that seems quite innocent. And I don't know whether this was already in the property when Lucy Letby purchased it and she simply hadn't got round to decorating it. I don't know. But this was kind of like a nursery room. Now, you could say, why would someone in their early 20s who is single have a nursery room? But I've got no idea whether she purchased a house like this or whether she added these details in later. I've got absolutely no idea. But what stands out to me is this owl decoration bears a striking resemblance to what is found in the nursery rooms at the Countess of Chester Hospital where Lucy Letby attacked these children. And that does give it a bit of a different feel, doesn't it? I mean, it's not just a case of an owl being on a branch. They look actually quite similar in style, in artistic style. And it makes me wonder if she put them there. Or were they already there when she purchased the house and she just didn't decorate them because they did remind her of the nursery rooms at the Countess of Chester Hospital. It's just a strange coincidence. It does make you wonder. And was the fact that her house actually backs onto a cemetery, was that, as I said earlier, a selling point for her? What I want to do now is actually move on to what was discovered in Lucy Letby's property, the notes. Now, one of the lead detectives made some interesting comments on the Daily Mail podcast just a couple of days ago, where he said it might be possible that Lucy Letby actually left those notes there for the police to find. Take a listen to the following.
If we're looking for why, then, well, she wrote it down. And in my view, she wrote it down and left it for us to find. She knew the police were investigating Operation Hummingbird. She knew that her colleagues had been spoken to by police. And for me, she knew at some point we were going to be speaking to her. So either recklessly or intentionally, she wrote it down for it to be found, I think.
She's not a stupid person, is she?
No, she's not.
No.
No, she's intelligent and she's articulate, and we've seen that she can do what she can do.
Now that connects nicely with the video that I created yesterday, which is titled How Many More Victims? Now that looked into the fact that Further documentation, further medical notes and further scrawlings written by Lucy Letby were discovered during the second arrest. Now, this wasn't even picked up upon by the media. I mean, they did mention it, but they didn't really mention its relevance. The fact that Lucy Letby's house, her parents' house and the workplace were all searched during her first arrest, yet further documentation was found when she was rearrested on the second occasion at her parents' home in Hereford. So my question yesterday was, where the hell were those notes between the first and second arrest? Where was Lucy Letby keeping them? Now, this was actually backed up by a documentary that was released yesterday by Cheshire Police themselves. I'm going to play a very, very short clip of that, which just explains what they found during that second search of Lucy Letby's parents' property.
We also knew that she was a copious writer of notes now we thought that perhaps having been arrested she might stop doing that. It turned out when we searched that second address she had continued to write her thoughts and all sorts of processes about the investigation, about the events that she was being investigated for. So yeah, we seized quite a large amount of material on that second search.
Now this also connects with what we've just heard there. Were these notes left intentionally by Lucy Letby for them to be found? Because I can't really think of any other explanation as to how they would have been missed during the first search. Again, let me just clarify what took place. Lucy Letby was arrested in 2018. Her house, her workplace, her parents' address was thoroughly searched top and bottom. Now, some people may say, well, maybe they just missed the bin bag that was laying in Lucy Letby's garage. I mean, I just don't buy into that for 1 second. I mean, one, you've got a photograph here of two officers coming out of the garage. And secondly, the police actually went to the extent of digging up Lucy Letby's front and back garden. Now, you can't convince me for one moment that they would have missed a bin bag laying in her garage when they've gone to the extent of turning this house upside down. So then that leads to the question, where were these 6 pages of medical notes later found at Lucy Letby's parents' property a year later, and also the note which was written and found in her garage? Now, I can explain the note because the note would have most likely have been written between her first and second arrest. But where did those 6 pages of medical notes come from which were found at her parents' property a year later, considering her parents' property was also searched in 2018 when Lucy Letby was initially arrested? Now, my interpretation of the individual Lucy Letby, and bearing in mind, this is just my interpretation here, but I feel that Lucy Letby got off on the deception, and that was a big thing for her. Maybe not the only motivation in committing these crimes, but she seems to enjoy the deception. And what I mean by that is that her crimes themselves seem to get more risky as time progressed. She was becoming a lot more bolder, a lot more confident and reckless, really, you could say, towards the end of those offences. And then you combine that with this conversation or relationship with this doctor, Dr. A, this married man. And it makes you wonder, when you look at her conduct in those text messages, the fact that she's almost kind of leading him on in a way, sort of dropping breadcrumbs. Now, he's come forward in the press and said, Lucy was infatuated with me. For 1 minute, I don't buy into that for 1 second. I'm sorry. This guy was messaging her incessantly, as far as I'm concerned. He was communicating with Lucy Letby on a lot of occasions. And if anybody was the chaser, I would say it was him. And that's my own personal viewpoint here. He came across as kind of like, you know, the knight in shining armour, rescuing the poor victim, the damsel in distress, if you want to refer to it in that way. But she fed off of that. And when he got close to her, she would then shut the door. It's almost as if, you know, the text messages exchanged between Lucy Letby and her colleague, when her colleague sort of alluded to the fact that he fancied her or she fancied him. No, I don't. She likes to leave the little breadcrumbs. And I wonder if this note and these notes left around the property, whether they were intentionally left for these police officers to find. Because how do we also explain the 6 pages of medical notes found at her parents' property on the second arrest? Were they also left intentionally? Anyway, do leave your own thoughts and theories down in the comments section below. Do you believe that there's any truth to the fact that Lucy Letby purchased that property specifically because it had a cemetery which backed on to her back garden? Is that a possibility? Was that a potential selling point for Lucy Letby? considering what she was getting up to during that time period, and also the notes found in her property. Did she leave them there intentionally, or was this simply a massive oversight on her behalf? Leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. As always, many thanks for joining me for this video. I look forward to seeing you all again for the next one. Take care. Cheers.